Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. For those that don't know me, I'm Brent Hoagman, co-founder and chairman of Founders Forum, First Minute Capital, Founders Factory, and a few others. And quickly, a little bit about Founders Forum. We're a global community of the top tech founders, corporate CEOs, and star investors. We often do events in person, big flagship events in London and New York and in other countries. But right now, obviously, we're not doing that quite yet, hopefully in September. So we're doing a lot of virtual content with all stars as today. I'll hand over to our moderator in a second, but some quick housekeeping before we get started. Live stream. This event is being streamed on Founders Forum LinkedIn page, so welcome to everyone joining us there. A recording of this session will be posted along with all other FF Live sessions on the Founders Forum YouTube page once this is over, so you can go over there and subscribe and share, etc. And I'm pleased to hand you over right now to our partner and a partner at McKinsey, the wonderful Neera. We are thrilled that we have McKinsey & Co. as our 2020 knowledge partner for Founders Forum, and she will drive this open discussion. Neera, over to you.
Brent, thank you very much for your warm introduction. Hi and welcome. My name is Neera and I'm a partner in McKinsey's tech, media and telco practice here in London. I also lead Fuel in Europe, which is our practice dedicated to working with startups and scale-ups, helping them grow and realize their mission. Needless to say, we're very excited to be hosting this webinar together with Softbank and 2 of their portfolio companies. I want to start by echoing Brent's warm introduction and thank our partners in Founders Forum. We've been working together for the last few months and bringing this and similar webinars to audiences globally. I also want to thank our panelists for joining. I know many of you, including myself, are tremendously excited about what will undoubtedly be an engaging and insightful 60 minutes. Brent has done the housekeeping for us, so without further ado, I want to move to our panelists and ask them to introduce themselves. It feels like they actually don't need an introduction because many of us will know them by name and will know the companies that they lead. So I will ask them to tell us about those businesses, how they've established them, and what is the mission and vision that drives them. Rajiv, could we ask you to get us started with a short introduction?
I've been with Softbank for 6 years, founded the Vision Fund 3.5 years ago, and the CEO of the Vision Fund.
Hi, I'm Piyush Bansal. I'm the founder and CEO for Lenskart. Lenskart is a company that some of us founded about 10 years back out of India. There are about more than 2 billion people globally who need vision correction, who don't have access to vision correction. We founded this company to use technology to solve this problem. And what better place to start that than India, which houses about 40% of the world's blind population, and more than 2/3 of Indians who need spectacles don't have it. So that's our vision. Mission is really to create enthusiastic customers and keep surprising them. We have been at it for about 10 years and recently partnered with Softbank last year.
Thank you. And Mohit, could we have you tell us about yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the audience, wherever you are. And thank you for taking the time to listen to us. My name is Mohit Aran. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Cohesity. I founded the company in 2013, so it's 7 years old. Before that, I was the co-founder and CTO of a company called Nutanix. And in prior life, I spent about 5 years at Google, helping build some of their distributed systems technology. Let's talk a little bit about my company, Cohesity. Cohesity starts off by basically doing enterprise backups. But our vision is to do something bigger, which is to basically do data management for enterprises. I think the easiest way to understand our vision is to draw an analogy to my former company, Google. Google is a great search engine. but it's actually much more than that. It's actually a platform. They've built a platform on which search was just the first thing they did. But beyond that, they came out with Gmail, YouTube, Google Maps, and a variety of other stuff, right? Similarly, Cohesity is a platform for enterprise data management. Backups is just the first thing we start off with. But beyond that, we can do a variety of other things like filers, object storage, analytics. All in all, what we're really trying to do is solve the problem of what we refer to as mass data fragmentation, which is all our data is sitting fragmented across our infrastructure, and we want to bring it all to one platform. So in a nutshell, we just want to bring Google-like simplicity to enterprise data management. That's what Cohesity is about. Thank you for that.
Fantastic. So going on to our first question, COVID has put enormous pressure on multiple geographies and sectors and raised questions with investors on what will really survive and be strong in the new normal. Rajiv, how do you view the last 6 months, and how has that influenced your investment philosophy? And also, how have you supported companies and founders in your portfolio?
Yeah, and it crosses across geographies because different geographies are in different parts of the life cycle of COVID. China, South Korea, and Taiwan are ahead of the curve, i.e. life is coming back to some degree of normalcy in those countries, and Europe after that, and US is behind. So, I mean, look, we are a fund that invests in digital disruption, and we believe that digital disruption is going to happen over the next 5 years. What's happened over the last 6 months is that pace of acceleration has just taken off. The rate of technological change was already there, and that has just gone more rapid. And we're trying to assess which changes in behavior, human behavior, are more long-term and which are short-term. And if you look at a big picture, we have between Fund 1 and Fund 2, 90 companies across the globe, from Latin America to Asia. You know, the couple of themes that are coming up that are behavioral changes. And then Softbank Group itself has another 20 companies from, you know, one of them went, you know, from Alibaba to robotics to what have you. I mean, few changes are happening, which will be more longer term impact, I believe. The way we eat and the whole stack, not just delivery, but dark kitchens with Reef, but pre-COVID, our generation, our parents' generation, were never going to order their groceries online, but they're never going to order their food online or what have you. And Instacart now reaches 85% of the US households and hired 500,000 employees during the downturn. We're seeing that with Coupon. I mean, the reason South Korea, and the government acknowledged it in the newspaper, South Korea did not have hoarding, people did not go and do mass shopping, was that throughout the crisis, Coupon kept delivering 4 times a day. If you ordered till 2 a.m. at night, you got your groceries at 7 a.m. next morning. So one is the way we consume, not just food, but the delivery, but dark kitchens, because retail restaurants will get affected. It's about converting a strategically located and converting parking lots into kitchens. What Reef is doing is of impact. It is about Go Brands, which is a company in the US, which has got dark shops to compete with 7-Eleven and so on. And they were growing to begin with. Now they guarantee 25-minute delivery of everything from ice cream to grocery to alcohol to chips to what have you. So that trend of consumer consumption is changing. The other big change we are seeing is on online education, and we have some investments like Softbank, etc. And education is extremely important for society because we are one of the geopolitical impacts of today is going to be in the wealth disparity. How do we narrow the wealth disparity on our planet? And the two major catalysts for wealth disparity are education and healthcare. Rich people live longer, and rich people get a better education, more or less. And that perpetuates that wealth disparity, because once you get a lead in life with a better education, you kind of go ahead further in life and so on. So online education, again, has been catalyzed in a big way. I mean, whether it's Softbank, as just an example I know of, in China had 3 million daily active users. They have 35 million as of last month online. And that's the case for most others. Of course, there are two or three other industries that are getting impacted. And you're seeing that again in life sciences. It usually would cost billions of dollars to develop a drug. 1 out of 30 drugs would see daylight. And that's getting sped up by startups who are able to use targeted drug delivery, diagnostics. It's the entire spectrum of life sciences. If you look at Ping An Good Doctor in China, the online consultations have increased 9 times during the last 3 months. And a third of their cases don't even need a doctor. The AI and the computer sorts it out for them. Very few people, 1 in 10 Americans participate in a virtual visit. That's going to go up because you don't, from a lot of general ailments, you don't need to see a doctor. Of course, there is a placebo and a psychological impact of seeing a doctor. But the digital impact on the healthcare as an industry, which is perhaps the biggest part of the GDP in the US, will get cheaper with faster drug discovery, vaccines, etc. So I think those are the few segments that we are seeing a faster change. And that's where we are putting more dollars to work. In the past 3 months, we have invested in a couple of new online education companies, one in India, one in China, and also in the food side, where we have heavily invested with LMR in China, which is an Alibaba subsidiary competing with Meituan. Whether it's DoorDash and Uber Eats, we are the largest investor in both, and we're seeing that that the whole food ecosystem, not just delivering food, but as I said, delivering grocery, cooking the food in dark kitchens is going to change.
Fantastic. Piyush and Mohit, just moving on to a question for you. We know the startups and scale-ups play a critical role when it comes to innovation, but also driving economies. But we also are aware of challenges in both starting the business, but then also driving through that hyper growth. Given that both of you have had your companies for a while and that you've been extremely successful, I would like to ask you, what are the 1 or 2 lessons you learned from the early start or the early part of your journey? And what are some of the lessons or things that are important to you now? So Mohit, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. I would say the first one is to surround yourself with the smartest people, the best people that you can find, because it's people who build companies. And I think a great person is worth 10 average people, right? So that's the first thing I try to do, surround myself with the best I can find. I would say the second one is we have this motto in Cohesity, be humble and keep learning. Always be learning. and take a humble attitude, because the world out there changes very, very fast. You cannot be stagnant. There's always more to learn. So I would say those are probably two of the best lessons I've learned and that I would like to tell the audience out there.
Thank you. And Payush, what would be some of the lessons from your side?
See, for me, the first lesson has been that, we have to really think about the consumer very, very deeply, and consumer delight is in whatever we are doing is super critical. And the business has to be built not on Excel, but it has to be built consumer backward in every aspect of decision making, and getting on the ground, spending time with consumer, understanding, because I've seen in my own journey failing multiple times that your investors and your own group of people can't tell you where the business needs to go and what you need to do. It's the consumer that tells you, and the world is becoming that of a model where good is not good enough, and you continuously need to surprise consumers, and you sort of start competing with yourself and trying to, and whatever you do today becomes sort of an expectation, and then as you move forward, you need to break that expectation for the consumer and surprise them again. So that, I think, is an ever evolving journey, and something which came handy in the early days and all the way till today. The second thing which was very critical early on was also people, like Mohit also mentioned. I think people is an interesting subject. I think it's one that never ends in an entrepreneur's journey. It's a big element in itself, and depending on the stage of the organization where you are, the way you the whole people element keeps changing, the kind of leadership you bring in, and the organization is going through such a massive change that the kind of people you need for every stage is very different. And how do you balance the whole experience versus the agility? Do you hire people with the best, most experience, or do you hire people who have no experience? Because we didn't have experience of what we are doing in the past, and we were able to create this. So that continues to go on in this, and it's an important one to really get it right, because if you don't get it right, 2 years later you would repent the time that has gone by. And a few right people decisions and a few wrong people decisions can just make it or break it. And their agility makes a huge difference in terms of how we are, going about the whole thing, and where are we, how are we evaluating, how are we hiring. These are small decisions, basics, but make a tremendous amount of difference. In the world that we are today, that, the company has gone to maybe slightly better scale, thing that I think about is brand. I think the importance of brand, and I've realized that, eventually we are all in a game where we have to acquire customers irrespective of businesses. And if, you can't build a business which is ongoingly on a push model where you have to continuously spend large sums of money to acquire new customers. So there has to be a brand that has to get built in terms of the consumer's mind. And we have seen some great brands globally, maybe not from the tech world only, but from the traditional FMCG world or even the QSR world. So the importance and the focus of brand has to become very high. And being our background from purely data technology, sometimes we tend to not give it as much importance. But the importance of brand, I think, in times to come, especially when companies reach a certain scale, is super crucial. And to build that pull factor, without you doing anything, and in a time like COVID when people can't spend millions of dollars there, you should become a brand of preference and consideration. And the second point now in today's environment, my lesson is culture. So while in early days it was a lot about individual people and each area, but now when you have a certain size of people, you're beyond 4,000-5,000 people then, and you're going into multiple geographies. The only thing that can, carry on when you're not able to monitor everything is the culture. And I've seen it myself. My learning has been that when you are entering other geographies, multiple offices, when you're not physically present there, and the only thing that defines success there is whether you're able to carry forward. And every organization has its unique culture, which also evolves. But one arrives at a good permutation combination there where, you know, which works and the system moves and your execution quality is very high. So whatever that is, you know, whether it's the consumer DNA, that needs to carry forward. And if that carry forward, you know, the chances of success becomes higher and higher.
So I have to say, I really like these, from be humble, always be learning, get the people right, start with the customer, and build the brand. It feels like that is a good way to think about the journey from a founder perspective. I want to come back to a point there, Rajiv, that you just mentioned, which is that Vision Fund has about 90 companies in its portfolio and Softbank has about 20. And some of your recent investments have seemed to focus on, you know, very similar themes in different geographies, which lend themselves opportunities to think about the ecosystem of these portfolio companies and cross-collaboration. How do you view investments in individual companies based on their own value and merit? And how do you think about the ecosystem, the portfolio that you have, and opportunities that would exist within that portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, look, the ecosystem is a bonus. 80%, 75% of the investment decision is based on the merit of the company and its vision, the entrepreneur, the founders like Mohit and Piyush. That's 80, 75, 80%. So that the investment has to stand on its own two legs. Now, given the large organization, 113 billion market cap company Softbank is, with over 100 companies, we had September last year a CEO summit for 2.5 days, where we had 110 CEOs come and spend 2.5 days with each other in Pasadena, doing one-on-ones. So the way I see the ecosystem benefit is along a few vectors. One, of course, is we identify opportunities for companies to work with each other, whether it's a Reef, which is set dark kitchens in parking lots, which has got 100 kitchens now, and they'll go up to 500 kitchens, is to work with DoorDash and Uber Eats. And that's an introduction we can make very quickly. And there are numerous examples of that, where a B2B business like Cohesity, we can introduce to all our companies at the top level, as the Vision Fund is the largest shareholder in 95% of those portfolio companies. We do get listened to when we introduce, and it's a win-win. You can't force anybody to do business with Cohesity. You can just make the introduction, and then Mohit takes it from there. The second vector is to also, being a global company, is to take them global. We took Automation Anywhere to Japan. We're taking Cohesity to Japan. We're trying to take Lenskart to the Middle East. They need glasses. Because in Japan, we have, you know, thousands of retail stores with Softbank Mobile, selling mobile phones and accessories. So there is not thousands, 10,000. We have 1,000 SME sales force in Softbank Mobile that can help make introductions to Mohit and Cohesity into Japan, which he on his own would have not picked Japan to begin with. And but you know, the ecosystem benefits, whether it's new geographies, doing business with our other portfolio companies, are great, but they are a bonus compared to the business standing on its own merit.
Fantastic. Mohit and Piyush, just turning the table a little bit to you. You know, how do you view benefits of partnering with a well-funded investor like Softbank and being a part of that larger ecosystem of some very impressive companies?
Piyush, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I think you mentioned the word well-funded, and I think in an environment like today, that itself answers a bit of that, you know, benefit. But, you know, look, I've had the privilege of working with a couple of other investors on our portfolio, and when we got Softbank, and Rajiv just mentioned Pasadena, where I had the privilege of being last year. I think the sheer quality of companies, and some of them I had not even ever known that they are Softbank companies, and the kind of problems they are working on, from food to medical, and some of the stuff we don't even read about. I think for me particularly, that exposure and knowing where the world is going and the kind of investments that are being made into technology and AI, I came back, with the feeling that, wow, there's so much more to do, and we didn't even know this much is happening in the world. And so that exposure, I think, and the quality of companies and the size and scale at which these companies are growing is always good, because you suddenly start benchmarking yourself. You change the bar much higher, which is always good, because it's all about the vision one sees for themselves, which allows us to go dream bigger and bigger. The second, I think, is this whole element which Rajiv also mentioned, global. I think while we have always wanted to do that, there is always that element of fear. How do we get in, that early introductions, getting somebody in. And Softbank is one unique fund where the number of people that are there, operating level in every region is sort of surprising, and the talent is also very, very high quality. Some of the people when I meet who are part of the Softbank ecosystem, I wonder that how do we find a guy like that to work for us, right? And so they've really gone out, and I really mean it, they've really gone out and picked some of the best talent. And third, I think I have seen that entrepreneurship and building companies is a lot about risk taking. And as when we were small, the amount of risk we used to take was a lot. And then as you grow bigger with the same set of investors, the risk appetite keeps going down, because we just feel that there's a lot more at stake. I think with Softbank coming in at that stage, you suddenly get into day one again, and you have a lot of support, and discussions which would otherwise take weeks or months with other investors. With Softbank, and I've worked with partners, my own partners, there's Munish, Sumer, Vikas in India, Sarthak, all these people, the decisions are much faster. So it just feels like, we've just started 10 years back, and we're not debating about every little bit, because, time and risk-taking and agility is the biggest element of culture which drives success. That's what I would say. It's very unique in its sense that if we have to build global, large, impact-making companies, you need an investor like Softbank to be part of it, because it gives you that room to take that bigger, bold bets.
Thanks, Piyush. But Piyush is saying in one word is he finds us fearless. So that's not true. But I think there's a lot to learn. We are just facilitators. There's a lot to learn, even for a Lenskart, which is end of the day an offline, online e-commerce company, whether you sell glasses or shoes or cars, what have you. Even from a Coupon, Bomkim, or from Alibaba, or from Tokopedia, we have a lot of e-commerce investments around the world, to learn from their mistakes, to learn from how they improve customer satisfaction. That to me is what Piyush is kind of referring to, and we just facilitate that conversation.
And Mohit, what about you? What is your view on this question?
Yeah, so I'll start with, Softbank invests in disruptive companies out there. So right away, the first benefit you get is, you're sending a signal to the world that you're a disruptive company. You're a company to look at. Second, the fact that a big investor like Softbank is behind your company means that your company is going to be around. And a lot of, all said and done, we are young companies. And there are plenty of other older companies that keep telling customers that this younger company is somehow more risky. And with the likes of a big investor like SoftBank backing us, suddenly it gives the customer some proof that this company is actually quite stable and is going to be around. Third, Cohesity sells to some of the biggest customers in the world. The top 4 financial institutions in the world are our customers. Some of the biggest car makers in the world are our customers. Some of the biggest telecom providers are our customers. Probably the smartphone that you carry in your pocket is likely going to be our customer, that sort of stuff. And often what helps is we've done all the due diligence. The customer is, right at the point where they're about to make a decision. A call from Softbank, from someone like Rajiv, that, hey, we believe in this product. We are behind this company. Can often take that customer over that last hump, right? So that's very beneficial. Yet another one, please, Rajiv.
No, I wanted to give a live example of that. That's very important given the size of Softbank as a whole and the fact that Softbank is a large fee payer to the financial system, whether IPOs, all kinds of financing, selling T-Mobile, etc. So call to a large bank to say, look, on merit, please, to the CEO, because usually if you start bottom up, it takes a long time to go up when a B2B business, as I said, which Mohit is, Cohesity is not selling to consumers, it's selling to large businesses. It unlocks and expedites a conversation with JP Morgan or whoever, if the CEO of JP Morgan helps out.
Yeah, I think Rajiv said that when he thinks about the investment, 75 to 80% of the value is the company in its own right, and being part of the ecosystem is the bonus, is the gravy on top. It sounds like the well-funded part of the Vision Fund is part of the equation, but probably not as big as access to people, access to funding, ability to scale globally and work with other companies within the portfolio and part of the network.
I think they all add value.
I think money can make a success out of an unsuccessful business idea, by the way. So it's not just capital. Capital, as Mohit said, provides insurance when he goes and meets a large customer saying, look, I have enough cash on my balance sheet, and if I need more capital, I have Softbank behind me. But just throwing capital will not make him successful. It gives him a head start. Of course, a lot of our companies that ran out of capital, I won't take names, we gave them capital over the last 4 months because we believe in the business model. And we were the only investor, and they might have gone out of business if we hadn't put more capital. And we're willing to do that in cases where we believe in the business. That is there, but capital is not going to make a business successful like Mohit's. He has to make it successful himself. We can just help him when he needs help. We don't get involved in day-to-day running of a business.
And I would second that. I think Softbank is a great facilitator, like Rajiv said. They're there to help. And really it's up to the founder or the executive team and the other people in the company to make the business successful. But just the street credibility that Softbank brings because of its presence just makes our job easier.
Amazing.
And I will add one more thing to that. I think, which is subliminal and very important, which Piyush said, we do give the courage and the capacity to the founder to make a few mistakes, which is okay, because if you don't take risks, you're not going to grow.
So Rajiv, I think this is a great segue into the next question, which I know the audience is waiting to ask, which is, what do you look for in a founder when considering a potential investment? You were just going there by yourself, so I have to ask this question.
Well, the founders answered it themselves. Masa would say he has a sixth sense. He knows when he meets a founder. I've not done it for 25 years like Masa was invested and can, like a doctor, see a patient from far away and say, what's wrong. But if you were to kind of put it down on text, I would say we like repeat entrepreneurs like Mohit, who said he founded Nutanix before, and Piyush, who's founded 2 more companies before Lenskart, because you've learned from your past experiences. Many founders are technically oriented, are engineers. This is very important, by the way, a point. And Mohit said he's humble and keeps learning. Many founders, and the reason they failed, and I won't take names again, in our portfolio is because they've not been able to delegate and hire the second level of management. They grow too fast. They are micromanagers. They're not able to hire people to grow. So the ability of a founder who's secure and humble and is able to recruit people, retain them, motivate them, build the right culture is key to success. And Jack Ma has shown it with Alibaba, and there are numerous examples. And what the pandemic has shown in the last 4 months is in new skills that were never required of founders. These are all growth guys. What the pandemic has shown is that, hey, suddenly you have to worry about cost cutting, cash flow management, capex planning, supply chain negotiation, firing people, cutting costs, which is absolutely new for a lot of these growth founders, and how do you navigate in that new environment. Most of our companies that we've invested in never ever had to cut costs or fire people. That's something new, but I think the 2 basic principles are a repeat founder is proven, and second, an ability of a founder to hire the second rung of management, and third, of course, is their ability to think big. It's okay to think 5x and get to 3x. That's fine, but have that aspiration to not be scared, like a Bill Gates wasn't, to take on IBM and say, look, I'll build my new operating system and not be scared of an IBM. That's I think very important, because you have to think beyond your means and aspire at least to be something very big. And even if you get a third of the way there, and those are the 3 things we look at in founders, as illustrated by Piyush and Mohit.
Fantastic. So Piyush, Mohit, Rajiv talked about some of the shifts that we've seen due to COVID, and even mentioned that some of the geographies and countries that were more advanced digitally were potentially more insulated from COVID because some of the mechanisms were in place already. If we think about some of the technology shifts that are happening today and that are going to happen in the future, what are the ones that you are thinking about and that are impacting your business, whether that in the way that you're communicating with your customers or the way you're enabling your employees? So Mohit, maybe we can start with you.
Absolutely. Let's start with employees first, because as I said, it's people who make the company. I think it's very important that we take care of our employees. And as human beings, we all like connection, right? We all like to be connected to each other. And suddenly what this pandemic has done, it has threatened that connection. We're all sitting at homes, whether it's shelter in place or it's called with different names throughout the world. We are kind of now disconnected. So the first thing we've made sure at Cohesity is that that connection remains, which means that we have enhanced the communication within the company. We've told all our managers to overdo the connection they have with their employees, with their reports, call them often, get on the phone, give them the right equipment they need to connect to other people in the company. We promote social media stuff within the company, whether it's Slack or other means to enable employees to remain connected to each other and to their managers and whatnot. So just a lot more communication, right? Also, we care about their well-being. We've started, stuff within the company where any employee that might be feeling, that their well-being is not so great because of this COVID can reach out to a person and talk. and that sort of stuff. So it's very important to take care of your employees, right? Because it's eventually the company is all about people. And if the people for some reason get demoralized or aren't in their right mindset, then the company won't be able to move forward. Then let's focus on the customers. Imagine a customer. I think they are probably going through the same thing. They're sitting locked up at home. We are a B2B company. We sell our infrastructure to other companies. And this is the time when our customers are looking for simplicity. They're sitting at home. They can't walk into, maybe their data centers or, manage a very complex piece of technology. So this is a great time when we can remind our customers how we can bring simplicity to what they do. And we have rolled out stuff that makes their life even simple. So for instance, now Cohesity's UI can be consumed on a smartphone, right? We have an app on a smartphone using which they can manage their whole infrastructure. And so we've made stuff like that makes kind of the life of our customers really easy. And again, customers also search for connection. And this is again the time where we are not only encouraging our employees to connect with each other, but also encouraging our salespeople, field-facing people to connect even more with customers. And the nice thing is that despite this pandemic, our business is still booming. We are still doing well. And I think the underlying foundation of that is taking care of your employees and taking care of your customers. That's the reason for our success. That's how we are, surviving this pandemic actually quite well. So those are some of the things that we are doing. I'll let Piyush say his piece.
So I think Mohit has covered quite a lot, and I won't repeat those points, but are all valid points. But on a consumer side, because I think the question is a lot about what technology shift we are seeing. So we are an omni-channel business, which is both online, offline, and spectacles. We have seen that there's a large number of consumers still prefer to go and touch and feel and buy their eyewear because there's prescription involved. You've definitely seen a huge shift in number of people willing to buy a prescription glasses online. If earlier the number was X, that's definitely 2.5x now, just by in terms. So we have seen at least 200 to 300% growth there in terms of more people willing to try. And I think that's a change that first of its kind I have seen in the last decade in terms of such a massive shift in a category like this. We're definitely also seeing that appointment booking is becoming popular. So in our stores, which are omni-channel, and usually almost 70% of our traffic in the stores is driven through our mobile app, and where people create their profiles, and then so we are seeing more and more people are booking appointments before they enter the store. So that is another shift. Third, we are seeing that technology is playing a large role in making a more, and coming back to my point about customer experience. So safety has become a big element in customer experience. It was an element earlier also, but the rank of safety in customer experience has gone right to the top. And today we have been working towards how can we use technology to make a safer experience. So we have been working on technology where, using your cameras, CCTV cameras, you can detect the distance between two employees or an employee and a customer within the store. So that is how technology is enabling us. You're using technology to do appointment booking. You're using technology to see if vision correction can happen sitting at home. Can I check the power of my specs? Can I figure out my size sitting at home? So, so there is, and all of this to enable more and more safety and a safer experience for customers are some of the key trends we are seeing. We are also seeing a lot of involvement in some of the things. So AI and AR are becoming more and more popular. I think with this COVID impact, the need and what they can do, certain things which could have taken slightly longer to get adoption, I think are becoming a lot faster because people are obviously open to trying. When it comes to employees, I think Mohit mentioned, I think definitely, technology is playing a large role. We are having this webinar, maybe over online, and that's how employees are talking. I think what is lacking in that is the culture element, and how do you retain that. And I think there still work needs to be done. Honestly, last 2-3 months have been quite a roller coaster for everybody. But I definitely see the role of technology there, the role of AI there in interacting. And as much as we would like people to connect with each other, sometimes, just talking to an AI bot could be helpful. So I definitely see a lot more technology coming into organizations. One simple example is performance management. And Mohit already touched about safety of employees, etc., which I don't want to repeat. But performance management in high growth companies, performance is key. How do you now track performance? Because whether we like it or not, in the old environment, coming to office at some level ticked off certain boxes of performance, which wasn't the right way anyways. So I think some of this is good because we're moving towards more objective versus subjective performance. So I see a larger and larger role of technology on both customer and employee side moving forward.
Great. So I think Rajiv talked about some of the trends and rising interest in food, education, and life sciences, so the industry lens. I think Mohit and Peyush spoke about some of the functional changes, whether it's remote working, maintaining culture and performance management, the new norm, but also some of the customer shifts where you see them less and less coming in store and prioritizing safety over other aspects of their engagement. Rajiv, one dimension that I feel like we haven't covered, which is any geographical shifts in either technology or investment. How do you think the future is going to evolve in terms of geographies and where investments will go and where technology innovation will follow?
Positive and negative. The positive is, and we're seeing it last 3 months, more investable opportunities out of Asia, Korea, Taiwan, China. They're ahead of the curve on the recovery from COVID. Okay, so they're normalizing. We're seeing a lot more traction, a lot more opportunities in those geographies, and at much better valuations than in the US. Second, because there is a shortage of capital in Asia versus in the US. So being local is very important. You can't just fly in and make have the ability to invest. You have to have local offices, network with them. More so now, where you can't fly anyways. How are you going to do due diligence? How are you even going to meet management if you can't fly in? Of course, you can use video, but it's very difficult to invest in this environment unless you're local. So the first statement is the investable opportunities are moving more and more to the US. The second, which is negative, is that we are seeing the unwinding of globalization. Tech is the next battlefield. Countries believe they need to own their own technology, infrastructure, supply chain, so on and so forth, which is negative and will lead to inflation because you will need backup. You can't just have one factory producing everything for you in China anymore. You need one in Vietnam or one close to home in the US, what have you, so you need redundancy, which means the cost of the product will go up. No debate on that, because what people learn is if you have one factory, wherever in the world it is, you can't afford to be disrupted, or one supplier, you just cannot have that disruption anymore. So you need redundancy. But the bigger problem I see is that global coordination, sharing of research, sharing of knowledge, even not just US, China, even Europe, India, refusing to take investments from China, all over the world, the unwinding of globalization is getting fast-tracked, which is unfortunate for humanity.
Very interesting. I also wanted to make sure we had enough time to touch upon one other topic, which is around inclusion and diversity. So we know that Softbank recently launched its Emerge program, which focuses on founders from underrepresented backgrounds. And another topic that's very near and dear to my heart is, representation of women in technology. We know that we are in the world of male leaders, and despite significant research showing that companies with diverse managements and boards outperform their peers, despite even some of the McKinsey research showing that women more frequently apply types of behavior that is considered more effective in addressing global challenges, yet we're stubbornly very few at the senior management level and in the boardroom. So I wanted to ask the question to all three of you. How do we change that? How do we bring forward that change, empower more female leaders, and especially in tech? So maybe Mohit, we can start with you.
Sure. Well, we bring that change by living it. And I'll talk about how Cohesity is living it. So first of all, we have women in several leadership roles in Cohesity. My executive staff has 2 of them, my chief marketing officer and my SVP of business operations are both women. Our sales is divided up into multiple regions. One big region is Central US. The VP of sales for Central US is a woman. And one of our principal technologists is a woman, right? So I think we bring about that change by living it and not by just talking about it. So that's the first thing my company has done. The second thing it has done is we have an internal network where women can kind of go and share their concerns, seek out help from each other, kind of connect to each other, right? Learn from each other, that sort of stuff. So we've kind of encouraged that that network to flourish. And lastly, we encourage external connections. So there's a conference called the Watermark Women's Conference, and Cohesity was represented there by our principal technologist, Teresa Miller, who led a breakout session there. So I think we believe we are doing quite a bit to promote this. And so we kind of are living it and not just talking about it.
Peyush, any thoughts from you?
Yeah. So I think, the young organizations who want to change the world, the role of women is quite high. And I actually think that when you want to change the world, you need people with passion. I think women are definitely more passionate when it comes to organizations. They're more loyal to the organizations. You need more multitasking, which women can always do better. I have not seen research, but my 10 years of experience, I've seen it over and over again, and they're definitely more efficient. And if you wanna do what the world has done in 30 years, in 5 years, and you wanna disrupt, then women carry pretty much most of that quality. Now, in terms of and just like Mohit said, I think in our organizations we do it. But I think your question is that one of your questions is how do we address this at a macro level in organization? I think it needs to be spoken about more. I know we want to talk about equality, but this is not close to equality right now. So I feel that there should be goals set within organizations to meet a certain number, and there should be special benefits given to women employees. And maybe that is not a thought that everybody shares, because why should there be anything special? Because women are delivering probably better than men in most in most critical roles. So, but I think to address the problem at a macro level, even though it may sound unfair to a few, there has to be some global guidelines or investor guidelines or corporate guidelines within the company where these goals have to be met. I've often seen that when I'm hiring for certain positions and I'm talking to people and I say I really want a woman in this role, and sometimes that does spark something, that why is Piyush saying this, and so it's definitely not common. I think I'm a big believer that special benefits, measured goals is what can make this change at a macro level.
Rajiv, any thoughts from you?
The Emerge program we set up in February, March, even before the whole Black Lives Matter campaign. And that we started with the US. Now our next effort is Europe, which we will close in November, December. We basically said, we started off by saying, look, we will give access to our ecosystem and we will mentor entrepreneurs who are setting off and looking for seed round financing. And then we said, look, we'll also give you money. We had 225 applications in that Emerge program from entrepreneurs. We selected 14 and funded them. And we plan to do the same again in Europe. That was in the US. And of course, we have the 100 million fund also on top of that. But let's talk about women in the organization, which is important. And we are a young organization. The Vision Fund is 3-4 years old, started investing in May 17. We've grown from 10 people in January 17 to 450 today. We did two things. We created, and we set a target, we need women at these roles, these numbers. And to achieve that, you can say all that, but it doesn't matter. We have to create accountability. We track reports on efforts, tying diversity, to our hiring efforts. We use the Rooney Rule to ensure at least 2 qualified diverse candidates are interviewed for every role with at least 1 diverse interviewer. You have to prescribe. Just saying it, we realize it ain't working. How do you retain them is the second thing. How do you create an environment where all people thrive? Because you can recruit, but you have to retain them and make them welcome. And that's very important because, parental care, ability to work from home for women who have young children, pay, very important. Unconscious bias training. We had all our employees go through unconscious bias training to help eliminate discriminatory behaviors, for example, because, you have to take it out of your subconscious, having grown up differently. So we not only set targets, but as I said, there are 2 key issues. One is to create an environment, and second is to set goals and compensate people and to hire more women into the organization.
So Rajiv, I'm going to shift it to the McKinsey 3 and say it's 3 things. The first one, target, structure, and incentives, because it feels like all 3 need to be there behind the words.
You have to have the environment. Otherwise, we have a long way to go. We're nowhere. It's 3.5-year organization. We have a long way to go. But if you don't set those 3, you're absolutely right. Just setting targets won't make it happen.
Amazing. I know that we're out of time already, and we could continue this discussion. At least I'm very much enjoying it, but I think we had a couple of questions. I'm going to try to see if we can at least call out on 2 of the members of the audience to ask those questions. Starting with Kaylee from Deployed, if we can unmute Kaylee so she can ask her question. Kaylee, welcome to the session. Could I please ask you to briefly introduce yourself, tell us about Deployed, and ask your question, which I believe is directed at Rajiv.
Thank you, Neera. I hope you can hear me. My name's Kaylee. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Deployed. We're a London-based B2B SaaS startup. Our mission is to define work better. We automate the process of writing and managing statements of work via our guided scoping platform, which uses data to scope service-based projects, to deploy external teams quicker, and to create better traceability of the value added through the work they deliver. I really enjoyed the discussion so far, especially like the focus on people and culture. Talking about that in combination with technology is obviously a very relevant and important topic. With COVID, discussions around the future of work, including remote work, collaboration, we talked about connectiveness, have been accelerated. So I'd be keen to understand what your views on these trends and how they will impact business and corporate productivity.
Look, what we are doing, we have invested in a similar company called Globality, which does outsourcing in the US. I mean, as I said, is your question, if I were to summarize it, what is the impact going forward? And Mohit can answer some of that. And if you're a B2B business, it's very challenging to close B2B sales when you're selling SaaS platform and technology platform to a business without physically being able to go to their office, because he needs to go into their offices, install his storage systems, the apps, everything. It's not easily done remotely. But look, bottom line is very simple. Omni-channel is important, but more and more people are going to go online than offline. Whatever you're doing, whether to buy and sell cars or buy and sell insurance, which is happening with Insurance Policy Bazaar in India, or education, or e-commerce, or food, etc. So telemedicine, more and more people are not going to go into crowded retail outlets. Of course, it's not going to go away. They will still go, but for the next 18 months, going to a restaurant versus getting the food from a great restaurant or buying from online is a trend that's just going to speed up. The workplace is not going to be the same, which has negative connotations for commercial real estate and so on. Both commercial real estate because of work and retail and hotels. So certain industries are going to suffer. But some trends, I mean, why are you going to go spend $50,000 to get a master's degree physically in a university when you can get it online digitally for $10,000? And places like Penn and others are now able to scale up. It's a win-win for both sides. They're offering a master's degree in computer science for $10,000 a year, where you get to come to campus once if you want to for a week or two, but you get a real master's degree in computer science from Penn, for example, for $10,000 a year of tuition rather than $50,000 a year of tuition. Because I mean, certain industries like education are, as an example, and there are many, will have issues.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kaylee. I think we have time for one final question. If we can go to Michael Morris from PromoMe. And if I could ask you, Michael, to do the same as Kaylee, just tell us briefly about your company and then ask your question.
Thank you, Nir. And hello, everyone. My name is Michael Moss. I'm a co-founder and CEO of London-based PromoMe, as well as Kayla. And we bridge that notorious gap between creativity and business with our AI-driven SaaS platform that allows creatives to make their videos fully searchable and automatically create and personalize video clips, promotions in minutes. And like many online businesses, tech businesses, we've experienced 300% increase in usage and demo requests during COVID times. So I would like to ask the panelists about their views on how online businesses can retain that increased usage behaviors seen by online tools and solution providers best as we leave the lockdown. Thank you very much.
I'll let Piyush or Mohit answer, please.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So look, I think what we need to provide to our customers, if we are an online business, is to provide ease, right? So it makes it hard for them to go back. When they try to go back, whatever they're trying to go back to looks more complicated. We have to make our solutions simpler. We have to make our solutions cheaper. So I would advise, use analytics to track your customer usage patterns. If you find customers are unhappy with the usage, fix whatever it is. Make sure their data is very secure, because security is, top of mind for people. Make sure your data is backed up. And if you can provide that great experience for the customer, so this experience looks better than whatever they had earlier, well, why would they go back? So that's what I would advise.
Fantastic. I think with this, we will close our session. I just want to thank our panelists for graciously offering their time and thoughts on such a broad range of interesting questions. I think my favorites coming out of the session are Mohit's always be learning, Rajiv's look to Asia for opportunities, and Peyush's look and build the brand. And overarching, put the target structure and incentive in place behind everything you say to see it come to life. Thank you very much to our panelists, and thank you to the audience for joining us for the session.
Neera, Mohit, Piyush, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.